He was like, yes, that's calm. That's what we like. And then he came back up, and previous to that, he was telling him, oh, your music's too ghetto. Y'all too loud. Y'all need to straighten up. You need to conform. That type of thing. It was a lot going on. And I know some people may have not caught it, and some people may have not liked it because they just don't like music, or, they didn't get it. And so be it. But I think that he did an excellent job. Not as good as Usher, the USHER Usher, but hey, it is what it is.
So
the commercial that
if we really look at what prostitution really boomed, is when you saw melanated women. Not
meant everything to me today. So the Jeep commercial. So I enjoy Harrison Ford doing the Jeep commercial. And then also, I want to see how many people takes up that Starbucks situation, because Starbucks is on this on a boycott line as well. So I want to see how many people go in and get them free Starbucks. That they were giving out today. The Dunkin' Donut commercial I thoroughly enjoyed, and every year I sit there and I try to count how many Jesus commercials comes up, because every year now they get more and more money to spend on, telling everyone Jesus loves us and stuff. So that's my take on it. And go Eagles. Because they were not ordained by the president, but they won anyway.
I just want to thank you for touching on the Kendrick show again. It just the countercultural aspect of it was so powerful, and the symbolism. And if anyone is interested, I would highly recommend just going on YouTube and watching. I didn't even watch the game. I just watched the halftime show just for Kendrick.
Well, the halftime is the best part.
Yeah, and I would say this, Empress, to your point, like, you don't actually have to get it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like hip hop or whatever. You can't. The stage production was fantastic, and you don't even have to get the messages. But I think what's important to know is that whole thing was the resistance right there. That was part of the resistance, and the messaging was very strong. And it's okay. Like, if you don't get it, didn't understand it, didn't like it, that's totally fine. What I was reading on the internet is, how many people, oh, this was the worst ever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, have you all not been around? You didn't have to sit through Up with people who did all the halftime shows prior to all the artists who used to do it? I don't know if you remember that. Does anybody remember Up with People? That shit was terrible. Anyway.
Of course. Scary. Those. I knew some of those.
Up with people, you see them wherever you go.
You remember. That's what I'm saying. So people are like, oh, this is the worst ever. I'm like, y'all weren't around.
That was worse.
They used to come to our grade school. I remember that. And they would sing and make us sing. It's like ingrained in my brain, a brain worm. Up with people.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Now I remember the song too, and you brought it back.
Please forgive me.
My goodness. Thank you all. I had something that hasn't happened to me in a long time.
How about you?
My iPhone had overheated. It cut me off, and...
You won't stop. Okay, Diddy. Got you.
Well, I'm so happy we could roast. I'm so happy we could roast Jazzy together, and I'm so happy you're back on the app.
Yeah, I think I was the one that removed her. She was just really annoying.
She's gonna have her own. She's gonna have her own Nora moment. I mean, the whole thing is like, I can understand getting your talk therapy and dopamine off on this app, but she's just so toxic that if that fat ass doesn't go to the gym and read a book and wake the fuck up, she's gonna have her own Nora moment.
Well, I'm on the side,
it's easy for it to, put up that sign so I can turn me off.
Ben, it's also, that used to happen to me, and there are apps that run in the background that you're not even using, and they are causing it to overheat. I remember I had one app for my insurance company that said, if you're a safe driver, this will keep track of it. Well, thing was overheating my phone like crazy. So go through your apps, delete all the ones you're not using, and make sure that you're not running something in the background that you've searched through Google.
That is an excellent idea. It's an excellent idea.
Remember, Clubhouse used to overheat the phone a few months back as well. It's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I know. Whatever, I mean, the technology that they use is so different than any other audio technology because it always conflicts with YouTube and other things. It's, I don't know what the hell's going on. But you're absolutely right. There's a bunch of stuff happening. And actually, one of the main sources is that I replaced the battery with a place that did it for like $60, which sounded great. But it must be like a really cheap battery because I'm having trouble with it. So, but thanks for all the advice. That's the best reason for Clubhouse is you get emergency advice. Go ahead.
Ben, I don't think I've ever said this before. Kyle, I hope you will take this as intended. But Kyle's put a good link in the chat. And
Yeah.
I think we should talk about it. No, it's a good one. Thank you, Kyle. It's about I can't clean it up. The psychotic Christian lady who's in this new White House job about faith. Someone else can upgrade that.
Oh, I'd love to hear about it. Kyle, do you want to expand on that? Because that's one of my bugaboos, as they say.
Sure, I was looking for people's feedback because I haven't fully looked into the speculation, but I did notice some talk about this person, and I know that she's big into the prosperity gospel, which upsets even some Christian conservatives, because it's just like basically you're buying your place into the good graces of God with that, and that definitely goes against the actual message of Christianity. Which is really interesting how American culture has changed Christian culture over the course of history. And so also I noticed that she's had some previous marriages, and there's some speculation about one of them with a band member of Journey, and some finances there. And so I'm just wondering, it's very interesting how the conservative Christian right wing kind of thinks about their religion. And it might not actually be in line with the actual teachings of Jesus. And it's very interesting to see somebody like this be appointed to a top position, such as a faith office. So it's just something that I thought people might be interested in because of the talk about Project 2025 and also the kind of Christian aspect to do with that. And I thought maybe this might be something that people might be interested.
Yeah, no, totally. It's appropriate to our conversation, and I have heard of Paula White, and I remember back that she's a known despicable person. So I don't know if I know David Jacobson you had mentioned. Do you have some more background on her?
She's married to Jonathan Cain, keyboard player for Journey.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so Don't Stop Believing has a whole new meaning. But Neil Sean, Neil Sean, the guitar player for Journey, has sued her because somehow, I guess Jonathan gave her access to the Journey corporate account, and he's been writing some big checks that he was not authorized. That's the prosperity of grift, and the Church of Grift, I think, is her main religion.
Ooh, I like that one.
About right.
That's a good one.
All right, we are into the last half hour.
Can I just say that?
Yeah.
I just want to say, I think that's interesting. I even got into this weekend, and I think there's something about American evangelicals, right, who are disproportionately influential for their size, right? I mean, it's very difficult to figure out how many evangelicals are in the country, because when you do demographics, most Black Protestants would count as evangelicals, right, theologically, but they don't vote the same way, right? So it's very, as white evangelicals, it's just a very, and Latino, Hispanic Latinos, it's another really complex thing demographically. Because many of them would count as evangelicals, and they're drifting rightward. But what's interesting is there is something about that group of people that do feel like they're besieged, right? And that's why you vote for Trump, even though he's just a morally bankrupt person. That's what's interesting. What is the besieged thing, right? What is it? Perceptions aren't always true, but they're always real, right? I mean, you can't talk someone out of perception, right? And ask anybody that's been married. So yeah, that's interesting to me. I mean, I don't disagree with the comment about American culture perverting Christianity. I mean, I would think that started about 311 with Constantine, right? But Christianity had a couple good centuries, but yeah. So I don't know. I think this stuff is pretty interesting, and I think, Trump has capitalized on the besieged feeling, and the question is, like, how do you win over people that are besieged, right, or feel besieged, to realize, to a different imaginative place to stand? It's always a challenge, right? Because politics, it's not, there's Chris Hayes was on Bill Maher this weekend. It was really great promoting his book. He said, Steve Jobs used to say, it's not the customer's job to know what they want, right? That we have to help them figure out what they want. And he said, I think the same thing about politics, right? It's so much of it is helping people figure out what they want or maybe should want. So I don't know, what's the imaginative frame to be persuasive in that context?
This is Dr. James. I'd like to comment on this. And also I have an article I'd like to just quickly mention. But, I think, personally, Scott, what I think is that you cannot convince someone who believes in a literal Bible with literal end-time prophecy that says you will be persecuted, to convince them they're persecuted. So, I don't know what else to say about that outside of, this is, in my opinion, and this is coming, from someone who's grew up in a household of an Catholic father turned atheist, to, his big gift to me as an ex-hippie was figure it out for yourself. And, I've gone through a lot of different organizations of, spirituality, and, I see that there is a big grift going on, and it's co-opting religion like it did in the 80s with the, the moral majority, and it's come and gone, many times, and it's back in power. And, I'm sorry, I just don't see it like that, and we talked a bit about this yesterday, but I did want to comment on an article I read over the weekend. It was really concerning to me, which is, there's a study that came out that shows that people who've been diagnosed with ADHD, who have this diagnosis untreated over their lifespan, tend to live almost 10 years less than the average person. And, anywhere from 5 to 10 years less, depending on what end of the spread they fall on. And this is pretty consistent across gender. And it actually fine to think about for me personally. So I've been digging into this a bit more. And if anyone's curious about it, this week I could get into this a little bit more and talk a bit about what are the risks.
Okay.
I just want to say that if that's the case, then Black Protestants shouldn't be voting Democratic, because many of them track the same way on the literal Bible and they vote differently. So so it's strange, but you can believe the same thing about the Bible. You could take a sort of, I wouldn't say literally, because I would say to read about the end times and Revelation and see it as the contemporary prophecy is not reading it literally. I actually think it's reading it anachronistically, but
and that brings us back to hermeneutics, doesn't it?
But I'm just saying, this we finished it. I'm saying, like, people can have traditional views of the Bible and vote differently. So the frame you paint, Dr. James, is like,
there are Bible literalists who actually believe literally that this sort of prophecy, kind of mystical prophecy of, what is it, John of Patmos and all of this. There are people who literally believe there is going to be an Antichrist who comes with 666 on his skin and is going to come and slurp up all the Christians before, in the middle, or after end times, depending on what part of the argument they're on. And, this is not like me.
Double down on their delusions. Why double down on their delusions? This is I've been to bat for Christianity.
One mic at a time. One mic at a time.
When you track most Black Protestants, they believe the same thing as white evangelicals and vote for liberal Democrats. So I don't think the fact that someone believes in a literal end times with a Antichrist with 666. I'm
talking about people. Okay, listen. Just let me just say this one last piece. I'm talking about folks who believe they're being persecuted. I'm talking about people who believe they're being persecuted. So take white out of the equation. Just call it Christian evangelicals who take a kind of more literal view of Scripture, who believe they're being persecuted for their religion. Maybe that's helpful for me to be that specific.
But that population's probably much smaller than your rhetoric points towards. And this is why I've been coming up here, and every time I hear shit like this, I'm like, this is trying to put all people in a box. And
I didn't say
all Christians in a box.
I didn't say all.
The Bible literally. And what Scott has just explained to you is that is not true.
Listen, I have almost as much religious education as Scott, except I don't write it,
That doesn't mean
on my
your opinion is right and his is wrong.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm saying I disagree.
Okay,
I mean, you call yourself.
All right.
Let me get in there. I want to give my Native American.
All right. Give your Native American. Go for it.
So I think the original statement of Scott that these people feel put upon and that we should pay attention to it is sort of a gaslighting and red herring, right? These things, as has been acted upon at least since Trump's first administration, is that there is a rebrowning of America because the Europeans never really took care of all the Indian populations in Central and South America. And now, since Kissinger and Friedman and all of these different presidents have been screwing around in Latin America and messing up their economies, of course they're going to come here and try and make a living and get their shit back, especially when their countries are overpolluted, there's drug crime, there's all kinds of intelligence agencies. It's just a mess. It's violence, it's pollution, no jobs, all that kind of stuff. NAFTA just compiled on that because that was the only advantage that Latin America had over Anglo-America was agriculture, and then they took that away. So to me, this is all just towards assimilationist rhetoric, right? So even Trump, when he tried to take birthright citizenship away from Native Americans, because he said, unless they act like Americans, they cannot be Americans, even though they were first. We were all here first, Mexicans included, before the rest of you. And right now, all of these people, especially in the United States, are in jeopardy. So if you're watching out for Israel and Palestine or Uyghurs and Tibetans and all that kind of stuff, you have that same sort of genocidal Holocaust crisis happening here in the Americas with MAGA and with Trump, partly for resources like water, oil, lithium, but also for just getting rid of us for the last time. So to me, when these evangelicals are saying that somehow they're put upon, it's that they realize that the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, that have taken up all of the air in the room, so to speak, in the United States, fighting with each other, is going to be minimized. There are other people here from all over the world, including this hemisphere, that have their own opinion, their own culture, their own way of doing things. They have their rights because they were here for 40,000 years and they're coming to the United States. So I think it's just a red herring. I don't care that evangelicals feel put upon, that somehow their voice is diminished. It's right to be diminished. They are going to be part of a multicultural society. They'll have to live with it.
Yeah, and just to put this into perspective a little bit, like I've got a friend and
All right, but keep
like
it to
so
like a minute where we have to.
okay, yeah. So like within First Nations in Canada, there is the residential school system. The Catholic Church headed this. It's terrible. You know, it's interesting you brought up the Uyghurs and the Tibetans because Xi Jinping's kind of actually criticized Canada for doing what he's doing today to those groups of people. It's very much real. What's just the nuance that I guess over the course of time and realization and reconciliation is that there is an effort by certain denominations and certain evangelicals to strengthen those ties and have reconciliation and come to full awareness and recognition of all of the sins of the past of people that believe the same way as they did. And so there's just a lot of nuance when it comes to religion. And a lot of times people like to think of it as a dichotomy one way or the other, but is just not the case. In order to actually make one's way through like religious studies and get a PhD, one's going to have to navigate through a lot of nuance that a lot of regular people just aren't willing to put the effort into doing so. So they'll double down on their delusions or their opinions or their ignorance, but that doesn't mean that their view of Christianity is all of Christianity. There are so many evangelicals that I know that are on the left that just they listen to this sort of rhetoric and they're like, wow, like people are only paying attention to the hypocrites. Why aren't they paying attention to the people who actually embody the teachings of Jesus Christ?
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Listen, we've got 15 minutes left, and I want to give everybody a chance to give their closing comments, pearls of wisdom. We have a couple new people down below in the audience who don't know the rules of the room, so just real quick, nothing personal, Marion, but we don't. We have a curated stage, so it's all people who know each other, and you are a new person, and we welcome you to the audience and to participate in the chat room. But until we get to know you, we probably wouldn't be bringing you up. And to my other friends down below, I apologize because we did fill up. We try to limit the stage to about 12. And I know I saw Marvin and John, who's here, Larry, and Elle, and Andrew. Anyway, you know who you are. Anyway, we will be talking to all of you, I'm sure, later in the week. All right, so I'm going to go from the bottom up and try to keep it to a minute or less. Let's go. We'll go Cindy, Empress Ronnie, Breyer, Dr. Francine, Rick, Barbara. I'm going up the stage. The people who just spoke in the last 5 minutes, you got. If there's enough time later on, I'll include you as well. Cindy, closing comments, pearls of wisdom.
I just want to say hi to everyone, and I'm glad we had the shared experience of the Super Bowl. There were as many diverse opinions as there were weird ads. Anyway, great to see all of you, and we'll talk tomorrow.
Sounds great. Thanks, Cindy. Okay, Breyer, closing comment, pearls of wisdom. Breyer, go once.
Slow to come off the mic there. I was in another window. When everything's going crazy right now, I think it's a good time to do a little self-reflection and look at ourselves. And I think about how I spend on this app and how I live in my everyday life and what we contribute to in our actual values, and try and be a little more consistent within ourselves on what we stand for. So random shout out to there, and that goes from sporting events to everyday life to how we talk on here. So random plug. Hear you.
All right, thanks, Breyer. Dr. Francine, closing comment, pearls of wisdom.
Let's not all take it so seriously. We have to wait and see. Again, we have to wait and see what happens. There is a resistance already. And we need to have, this is funny for me, faith. Faith in the American people and their legacy of democracy.
There you go. I like it. That was poetic. Thanks, Dr. Francine. Rick Ricardo, Rick Sanchez, your turn. You got the floor.
Well, I have a prediction that sometime within the next 4 years, Up With People will be back at the Super Bowl with the Village People.
Oh.
Oh no, you could be right. That's horrifying.
I think Rick. I think before it happens, Up With People and Village People will be honored at the Kennedy Center Honors, and then they will go to the Super Bowl.
Oh, there you go. I love it. Thank you.
So anyway, my thing is find something to do this week. Definitely call your representatives. Tell them what you want. They have to hear from us. We have to keep the pressure on. We don't want the appeasement gloves to be put on. We want this is a time to resist. So to do that, you have to call them. Your state representatives, your local representatives, your federal representatives, just do it. And calling them is really the best way to do it because they have to have a person there to answer the phone and they have to record it. So, I used to think that writing them snail mail was the best way, but after talking to a bunch of aides, congressional aides that work for the people over the last 4 years, they said the best way to make a difference is to call, even if you might have to be put on hold for a little bit. But it doesn't take much time. If you set an hour a week, that's a very, very small price to pay to let your feelings be known to the people that are voting on issues that we need to have them vote the right way on. And that's it.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. Barbara, closing comment, pearls of wisdom. Barbara, our good Canadian friend who's Danish. I think Barbara.
I can if you want me to.
Well, no, but Scotty, I want to save you to the end. Okay.
Okay. Well, not the very
I'll get to you in 10 minutes. Okay. Let's see. Scott already been covered. Andrea, we haven't heard from you. Closing comments, pearls of wisdom.
I would disagree partially with Francine and say, do take it seriously. Don't not take it seriously. And yes, wait and see, but be active in the action of the moment, which then building off what Rick just said, they have said that there are now typically on average, it was for one state. I think it might have been Missouri. I'm not sure. They usually get 50 to 60 calls an hour on a congressperson's phone. Even if you go to voicemail, because often they are not answering, you often don't just sit on hold, they don't answer. Your call still gets counted, and apparently they're getting up to between 1,300 and 1,600 calls. And so the numbers have gone up. The calls are making a difference in terms of Congress people taking notice. So that certainly does matter. So I would say, it's not a time to, one has to protect one's mental health, but I would say pay attention. And I think there's things that we're not talking about, like, has and when or if does DOGE move on to anything related to our nuclear weapons, and what is going to happen there, or is Hegseth now in charge of that, and therefore we don't have to worry about Elon getting access to our nuclear codes. Anyway, trying to end on a positive note, I loved the I Am Something ad from the Super Bowl, which I was surprised. I don't think I heard anyone mention. I just thought it was so amazing to see all those young people saying that with a lot of support. I felt there were so many, in-your-face messages from Kendrick to some of the ads that it was just, it was fascinating to see, and very interesting to see Taylor Swift get booed, as if that matters. They could boo her for 5 minutes. Who cares? Anyway, great to see you all. And yeah, true. Don't despair, and stay together, because that's where autocracy wins out over community and people standing up. I do agree with Francine's good point about, have faith in it. Well, I'm not going to say that, but hopefully people will show up and understand and take action and not tune out. So, and the resistance is out there, and it'll only get bigger if you join it.
There you go. Thanks, Andrea. Really appreciate it. All right, there was some requests down in the audience for Jihatsu to give a closing comment, pearls of wisdom, but keep it to under a minute if you can.
Can I use a lot of bad language and insults?
I'd lay off. It is supposed to be pearls of wisdom.
Oh, well, everything I say is a pearl of wisdom. No, I'm just kidding. Whatever day it was this week that, or last week, sorry, that you guys defended me. It was you, David, Jane, and a few other friends I have in this room. I appreciate it. My sense of humor, or even the things that I know, aren't commonplace. And if I choose to be a shock jock of sorts, it's because what I find with liberals or even center left people is that everything is either black, white, or Jewish, and nobody ever talks about the other people in this country, especially First Nations. And so I get frustrated with a room like this, and that's how I show my frustration, is I just make fun of people because they're ignorant, and I don't apologize for that, but I understand why people think that I come across as violent or ignorant or racist or anything like that, but I'm none of those things. And if you're a reactionary person who thinks yourself liberal and smart and loves Star Trek, you shouldn't be so reactionary and make yourself appear just like somebody that wears the stars and bars on their t-shirt. That's all I have to say.
There you go. All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was fair comment, and yeah, look, you provide an alternative viewpoint that's needed and not often heard. So I do appreciate that. All right, so we're gonna go to David Jacobson, and then Scotty will be the caboose. David.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that compliment, Carranza, or whatever
your name is.
It's fine. The whole point is I think that our observations might range from wait and see to get on the phone and call somebody, but there's only a few people that are tuned into what's going on. I mean, I know I was probably more politically aware than a lot of the people around me watching the game yesterday, but it was interesting to see that we have to figure out a way that unites us against what we all know is wrong, and that's a dictator takeover. Or I'm just curious, what are we going to do when Doge and Trump and Elon ignore the courts? So that I don't want to be too passive for that situation. So thanks for everybody, and yeah, we're stronger together.
Yep, agreed. All right, thanks, David. Scotty, you're up.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to say this. So there are people who, let's say they go to a concert, and one of the opening acts is jazz or something, and you don't like jazz. Whatever. You don't watch it. It's not for you. Or maybe it's country music or something. And, before the main act goes on that you're there to see, you go, realize you hate country music. You walk away, you get a refreshment. It's not for you. All that stuff. It's totally fine. Super Bowl halftime show. Hip-hop is the most popular genre in music. Sometimes people don't like hip-hop. They don't understand it. They don't get cultural references. It's okay if it's not for you, because not everything is for you. So I think most of the people that I'm talking to, or that would need to hear this in America, are the Chads and the Jennifers, no offense to if that's your name, out there in America, who are complaining on the internet about how much the Kendrick Lamar halftime show sucked. Sometimes these things are not for you, and that's okay. So when white people writ large start huffing and puffing, thinking that everything should be for them, they can also realize that not everything is for them. And it's okay to just mute up, to walk away, get a refreshment, and carry on, because there are many things that are not for them, and there are many other people in this world where Kendrick Lamar halftime show was for them. So for that, I'm grateful for the halftime show. God bless him.
Great. Thank you, Scotty. That was perfect. Hey, listen, really a great Monday. Good way to start the day. It's already the end.
They kicked me from the room right at the very end. Okay, this has been How to Resist White Supremacists and Nazi Führer Trump and his Nazi accomplice, Elon Musk, from the Resistance Fighters of Clubhouse. Gotcha, bitch! Gotcha, bitch!
This went on forever. She said, I have friends in America. And I'm like, y'all, are you getting ready? And they're like, we're going to war. Like, we're being told by our, what do they call your,
Parliament.
no. Anyway.
Prime Minister?
No, more local leader.
Premiers?
Oh.
Yes, premiers. We are being told by our premiers that we need to be ready. We need to cut ties with our American friends that, they don't see it coming. They don't know. They think it's a joke. And I'm like, because it is a fucking joke. What are you going to fight with? We're going to fight with maple syrup? Like every American here has, you know how many guns? There are more guns than fucking people here.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. More guns than people.
Honestly, Canadians are stupid. What can I say? Like, the fact that they think we're going to war, first of all, is dumb. The fact that they care that Trump was elected.
Yeah, why don't they secure the Canadian border, huh? Why don't they dig a big fence along that border? Let's stop them where they start.
No, because...
Well, they are putting 10,000 troops on that border.
Well, here's the deal. Most Canadians do not support this bullshit. Like, that's why, we can't give in to that stupid bullshit and, hate Canadians, because Trudeau has, a 22% or less approval rating. Like, Canadians don't even support this shit.
Much less, negative 22.
Yeah.
Nobody supports them at all at this point.
Well, just remember,
They're a victim.
Canadians
They're
and
a victim of the
Mexicans.
government.
Canadians and Mexicans are being summed up together. We're a threat to national security.
Yeah, but
honestly,
most
I don't
people
care about that. As long as America is
correct.
okay, that's all that and Israel.
Listen, I don't think most people, if most people are friends with, know people of Mexican.
Tough, like your nuts done dropped. And I see that I was one of the niggas who had a grandma who expressed to me this in this way that I understood that once my nuts dropped, it was certain shit I couldn't do.
This room is called Drake and Democrats Die at Kendrick Lamar Trump Party, Eagles. See, El Normo, this is why I love African Americans, because sometimes they reverse the tide and come back very conservative. It's very funny.
Dropping your nuts on white people, but you still want to vote for represent you? That's on them.
Sir, do you understand? When you go to a restaurant, do you have all black cooks, all black waiters, all black staff every time? Or do
Okay, so it's been an early morning of filming the resistance fighters here on Clown House, the Democrat liberal deep state of Dr. Ben Mendelsohn and Dr. James Schneider.
They often met peril, and they were often killed or barely escaped.
Welcome to the podcast, El Normo.
So I would listen to the deep state room. I find that interesting.
No, I find, they kicked me from the room, so otherwise I'd go back. But,
so that's it?
No, yeah, there's no more, I can't get in there, that's it. I'm just.
Yeah. What's up? Hey. So you can't create an account that can get in there?
No, that was the account. They just killed my new account. That was it. One burner account for 30 minutes of audio.
It's just
This is Brad and Chillism. The name of this room is called Trump, the downfall of the white community number 2.
They couldn't do well. It took a lot of terraforming.
Nothing. They're just resisting. They're resisting what they believe that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are Nazis and that he is a dictator and that they have to fight Doge. I mean, these people are the biggest traitors you've ever heard. They don't care about the financial misappropriation, the fraud, the lies. These people are themselves frauds and liars. That's my opinion. And essentially, I hate to say it, but technically every room has a subtitle and it's called Low IQ Dumb People Talking About Nothing, Wasting Their Time. That's the true subcontext of all of these fucking rooms, in my opinion. No. I mean, I think I'm involved in it, but at least I try to read books. I think that's the only thing that differentiates people who engage in low IQ dumb talk about nothing. Like, if you're not actually exchanging high value information, you're just doing politic. So what's really happening is it's mostly virtue signaling and politicking here. And it's a lot of racial identity politics. And as you know, it just never ends. Like, people, I think it's just because we're social creatures and like this is how we most shorthand communicate with each other. But no one is willing to actually read a book on this app. You want to do a book show?
No, but I am. Oh, you mean readable? I've gone through that. I've done Tehillim on this app.
Well, I have a house called People Reading Books to Each Other, and Zach Ruda and I have, spent many hours reading books. And yeah, I mean, to me, that's the most valuable time that I spend here is reading books. I mean, all this stuff, recording people having bad takes, is really just to try to make people angry so they realize that they are the hypocrite. Because if you're going to bitch and complain and get angry about it, clearly you don't there's a higher level context about philosophy, psychology, wisdom that they're missing, that they're still getting angry when somebody records them having bad takes. Like, what is it? I'm not doxing people per se. But anyways, that's my whole shtick at the end is to say, oh wait, you're angry still? Like, that's the whole point. And if they don't get, I hope that they get it. I hope they see my final message. Like, even Jane down there is a very angry person. I mean, it's funny because like people don't like the deep state, I guess.
What'd you say? I missed what you said.
I see you in the chat in the Deep State Patriots, and don't you see what they're doing is technically bad takes, and no real high value information is being transmitted in any of those rooms. It's always just ruthless identity politicking, I suppose, and virtue signaling, and they're all hypocrites. I mean, they're not patriots. Don't they see the waste and the fraud that Doge and Elon is stripping and how they've been spending our taxpayer dollars? Do you realize that...
They have a different vision of America, Adrian.
But they're liars. They think they're supporting Kendrick Lamar and the shitty culture of Kendrick Lamar because it's for other people. It's not for we the people.
I like Kendrick. What's the matter with Kendrick Lamar?
There are some songs I like, but technically he is supposed to be the Dow to Donald Trump's, Tay. Or see, he's supposed to. Well, because that song "We're Not Like Them," "We're Not Like You," or whatever it is, they're not like us. See, this is all white hatred. This is the hypocrisy of these fucking virtue signalers. Is they're supporting white racism. It's stupid, and I don't believe in terms like white or black. But anyways,
I don't believe in white racism, first of all, but I do agree with you.
I just believe in people, and we the people, Americans, and so they're hypocrites.
A shitty room. I'll agree with you on that.
It's not just a shitty room; it's shitty people.
Why is it shitty?
I don't enjoy it. It's personal. I find it shitty.
Oh, you mean you don't care for it?
Yeah, that's one reason. I think a lot of what Adrian just said is true. It's highly ineffective. It's highly uninformed. Very shallow. Other than, Scott, of course. But,
Isn't
when I say things, though, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but I've said it to the people directly.
That's
I don't care. I really don't go there.
When I say things in that room that I think are sensible, and I'm not saying like radical things, right? Like they're mostly just descriptive. People like Dr. James lose their shit.
Like what?
Funny.
Well, I don't know.
Like I was saying, evangelicals. I said, basically, why do they feel disaffected? Like, what is it? Like, because they got, people like Clinton and Obama got more of those votes. And my question is like, I'm not defending Trump, and I don't support the creation of the faith support office. But what is it that he feels like he's meeting the needs of his base, and what's this perceived need, and why? And Dr. James just thinks I'm like white knighting for these people. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I want to know what's going on, and demographically, it's really complex. And then he said, well, if people have this view of the Bible, they can't be persuaded. I was like, most Protestants, black Protestants, have the same theological views as white evangelicals, and they vote the opposite way. So obviously, you can have these views and vote differently. And he just was like so pissed.
Well, the thing is, like I said to you yesterday, he's wound up really tight. And, he says he has ADHD, and he said he wants to talk to people about an article that how having ADHD lowers your lifespan by 10 years, and he finds it very fascinating, interesting. Some people have the attention span of a gnat, and they're only capable of maintaining 3 variables in their conscious field. It doesn't make a difference to me how stupid you are. The point is, if you are going to essentially state that you are a subject matter expert, but yet still get super angry and super pissed and really not even make coherent sentences and ramble and stumble and stutter. The biggest problem on this app is there really is no real high value information transmission. It's all just politic all the time. And that's cool because I think that's what we do in terms of just general communication. Here, at least. I mean, at the water cooler in the office, people try to avoid topics like that, and then unless they know you're associated to a certain way. But even then, I don't like to do that with people in the office because generally they are hypocrites and fucking loser take people too. Anyways, I mean,
there was a time in business, let's say, in which people were respectful of political differences. People would say, well, I don't want to assume you're a Democrat, or I don't want to assume you're a Republican, or something like that. And people would, out of politeness, just leave that aside. Now, it's either you're with us or against us. At least that's the way it was in the first Trump term and during the Biden administration, I think.
But, Norm, don't you think also, I agree with that point too, but as a media guy, don't you think also a huge factor is like we don't consume the same sources anymore? Like back, decades ago, everybody watched the evening news, right? There wasn't this proliferation of cable news outlets and podcasts and micro sources where people could talk. You had some common ground. You might have different opinions, but we had trusted common sources. So we had a media that we trusted collectively.
Absolutely. We could at least agree on what we were talking about. Now we don't even agree on reality.
I agree with you, man.
So I'm sorry that we both started at the same time, but again, I make reference to Nicholas Nassim Taleb and his idea of fragility, and I believe our institutions are fragile to social media in unanticipated ways, so that if you have an idea of something that happened, somebody will have seen a TikTok video that says, no, this didn't happen, and present an alternative set of facts, and then there's no way to even discuss a given event because there's no consensus on what we're living through.
Norm, I texted you, but I thought your point in Steve's room yesterday when you were talking about Christians and stuff, I felt like you were so on point, and it's something that Democrats need to hear. Yeah, I just think it was a good. I think.
What did I say?
You were talking about like basically why you were talking about like just kind of like it's not radical that people kind of want the country has Judeo-Christian roots and yeah, you were just talking made some statements in response to the faith-based stuff that I thought was helpful, like in the sense of just sensible, right? I mean, because we didn't always lose as Democrats the number of evangelical votes that we're losing now. I mean, Clinton and Obama got much higher shares of the white evangelical votes. I don't think we're ever, as Democrats, going to win the majority of them or anything. But, Trump didn't need to win the majority of the black or Hispanic vote to win. He just needed to eat into our share, right, of the and so, if we could get back what we had under Clinton and Obama, who, Clinton especially, he signed the Religious Restoration Act. He knew how to reach out to people of faith in a way that, was, I think had a...
But Scott, the antithesis of your position is that Bill Clinton and Obama were disasters for the American people. Disasters. And George Bush was the pudding on the top. I mean, he's the biggest disaster. He bankrupted this country. He facilitated the bank. Do you understand what $40 trillion is and how it's only going to grow, and it's going to take 100 years for the American people to essentially get back to even where we were or where we could have been? I mean,
you are right. You are right. I think fiscal conservatism has set sail because there's no votes in it, right? So Trump, won this election. It wasn't a landslide, but he won with a decent margin. And no one, I don't think, conservative or liberal, right or left, has any illusion that Trump is a fiscal conservative, right? I mean, there's just no votes there, right? I mean, there were people in the primary that were options that were at least tooting that horn a little bit. Whether they would have actually done it is another story. But that's just, people just don't care about that. And I think you're right. It's a concern because at some point, the dollar's, it's going to crush the dollar, and people are going to feel it.
It's not just the federal deficit, it's your local municipal deficit, the pension crisis locally. I mean, you can say it's all connected because the federal government can bail out the municipals anytime, but this Wednesday, I'm announcing my candidacy for the 16th congressional district here in the Chicagoland area, and Mark Rice and his son Max Rice, Max is going to be my campaign advisor, and I'm going to start the new Instagram and notify the current congressman that his time is up, and we're going to make him panic. So to me, the whole thing is really financial analysis. If you can't have that conversation, you're just a ruthless political partisan and a
Alan, when
hypnotist.
you have your rallies, can Norm and I come to the rally?
Absolutely. It'll be at veteran monuments because, as someone who was spared a senseless death in Afghanistan with a bunch of DEI hires on the sides of mountain cliffs defending positions against Mujahideen in Afghanistan, I just got to tell you that if you're going to come on this app and say that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are Nazis and that they're dictators, but never actually talk about the financial crisis in this country, I mean, it's shameful. I mean, these people are clueless. I mean, totally living in delusions of grandeur, really, is what's happening here.
Norm, how do you feel about this political campaign, Norm? What do you make of this? This is breaking news.
Quite entertaining.
I mean, do you remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger announced his candidacy on Jay Leno? And Leno said, "You have a big announcement to make." And Schwarzenegger said, "Yes, this is the biggest decision that I ever made since deciding to get the full bikini wax and running for governor."
So this Wednesday is when I launch it. My friend, he was hesitant to work with me, and I said, I promise that I will put on a tie, a jacket, and a collared shirt, but I can't guarantee I'll be wearing underpants or pants or shoes or even socks, maybe socks, while I'm on camera creating content disparaging the Republicans.
There's a comment in the chat, and I want to try to express experiment with a controversial opinion. People are constantly almost deifying the people who were here when Europeans landed on the shores, the native people, the indigenous people, First Nations, whatever you want to call them. And I've always questioned that deification. There might be another word for it. That if you want, hagiography. What happened was that Enlightenment values from Europe arrived at these shores, combined with military, intellectual, industrial, civilizational might. And whenever a more advanced civilization encounters a less advanced civilization, it's kind of inevitable that the more advanced one will take hold and will develop. So, I mean, it's awful that in years past this was well, it amounted to, I guess it was an unintentional genocide. I don't think it was intentional. Maybe part of it was intentional, but on the other hand, I think we revere the values of the Enlightenment more than we would of the native cultures that existed before, which did have slavery, which did have brutal torture, which didn't have things like individual rights. So again, it's I guess sad that civilizations rise and fall. But if we had to choose between two, I think we would choose the Enlightenment over the alternative. Is that too controversial? I'm addressing this to the guy who's writing this in the chat.
Well, Norm, do you know Pinkert's book Enlightenment Now?
Of course, I have it on my shelf.
Yeah, right. Of course, you're kind of making his argument there, right? I mean, not that you're not making it original, but I mean that's basically, I mean, this period in the Enlightenment, like in world history, you just won a lot. Now, not to say there's not racism, oppression, and colonialism. I mean, of course, there are those realities. Of course, it can get better. And you know, I think people of goodwill are trying to make it better. But I mean, oh my God, this is compared to most of world history is pretty savage, right? I mean, most of us. I mean, can you imagine living when Genghis Khan? I would have just killed myself once he rode over the hill, right, Norm? It's over. I'm not going to fight. I would have. No way would I have made it a day.
I mean, President Obama mentioned this in a famous speech. He said in those days, they'd come and they'd say, open the gates to your city. If you open them, we will slaughter you and take your women and children as slaves. If you don't open them, we'll open them anyway. We'll boil you in oil and we'll murder your women and children. So make your choice. They would boil people in oil. It's a bad way to go. Now we don't do that.
I mean, if Kennedy gets his way, we won't even be able to boil our French fries in oil, Norm. I mean, that'll be, you know.
So I'm trying to get Max. I'm trying to get Max Rice to come back in here. He's the campaign manager for this conquest of the 16th district. And, you know, we've seen the deep state patriots come in, but of course, I invited them up. They don't actually want to say anything here because they run a curated show. You know, if people are afraid of censorship and they're afraid of opposing views and all they want to do is virtue signal and claim they are part of a resistance against fascism, Nazis, dictators, and Doge, you know, they're just propagandists and they're really low IQ and they don't have the emotional strength to come into an opposing room or let opposing views or voices, even calm and compassionate voices, which are still opposing. It shows fragility. It really shows weakness.
Good morning.
Hey, Shlomo, how you doing?
Hi, Shlomo.
Hi, guys. So I got a few questions. Number one is to prove me wrong that there's more oil in Alberta than there is in all of the United States of America combined. Prove me wrong.
Do you want me to show you the map?
Show me the map. That's what I've been.
You mean the oil? Why is this an issue of contention?
Because the proof is that I agree with much of what Trump is saying, but some of it leaves me at a loss that he's either speaking to dummies, which is none of you people here, because you're all thinkers with proper discourse, but to say, you see, you live there, I live here. It's a false border, the 42nd, 49th parallel, whatever. It is a false border. It's just a line from the Lake of the Woods to Vancouver. But to say that Canada should be a 51st state, I must say the word, is asinine. So he's saying it knowing that 40 million people in Canada is equivalent to 40 million people in California, and the size of Canada and its resources and the area is greater than all of the United States. So he knows it doesn't make any sense in the words he's using. So he must be pandering to idiots, just to make a broad statement instead of saying British Columbia would be a state, Ontario would be a state. Ontario would be the 4th or 5th largest state, by the way, after New York, Florida, Texas, and California. So instead of putting it in detailed terms, he just makes a broad statement, which to me, someone living here in Canada, is stupid.